Hi, this is Becca, and I want to talk a little bit about your short papers for your Great Books class. And I have the assignment sheet pulled up here, and I got to this by going to assignments and then to assignment descriptions, which has all of your assignment sheets in it. So this is what your assignment sheet looks like, and I want to talk a little bit about what I expect for your short papers. So you have four short papers in the course, one for each of our 4 modules. And these papers are going to ask you to go a little bit more in depth in your discussion boards. I do give you a prompt for each paper, and it will be posted in our folder. The first module, which you guys have right now, only gives you one prompt because we're only reading Beowulf in the Heroes module. But in future modules, we're going to read 2 books, so you have the option to choose which book you want to write about. So there will be 2 prompts to choose from in the future, and you only need to write about 1 prompt. Please do not try to write about both prompts. That is not the goal of this paper. Only write about 1 prompt in the future. This also gives you an option to work on papers based on your schedule. So if you want to get ahead and write about the first book that we read in a module, you can do your paper early and then not have to worry about it when we get to the end of the module. So you can kind of do your papers where they fit your schedule. So think about that as you're planning. You don't have to wait until the end of the module to do your paper after we get past this first module. So what do I expect from you in these papers? You need to answer the prompt provided. You're going to choose one in the future modules, but you need to answer those questions that I ask you. And you need to provide evidence from the text to help you support your answer. And this is really important. It is much better to provide 1 or 2 really well explained examples than to just list a whole bunch of examples that are not explained. So I'm looking for you to go more in depth than you might in your discussion boards, but also to be concise at the same time. So pick 1 or 2 things and really explain those well, as opposed to just listing as many things as you can think of. This really comes into play because your papers need to be 400 words. They need to be at least 400 words. That is part of your rubric, and 400 words is the minimum. You can go over, that's okay, but you need to think about how much you're going over. These papers can be answered in 400 words. So if you are doubling the word count or writing 1,000 words or more, you might need to consider, am I meeting the goal of this paper? Have I provided too many examples? Am I going way overboard? Am I not just answering the prompt? What am I doing here? So if you're going way over this 400 words, you might need to think about what you're writing and go back and take a second look. These are formal papers, so even though the prompts might be similar to a discussion board prompt, your extra 200 words are going to come from the fact that you need to include an introduction, thesis, and conclusion. There are resources for these if you are like, oh, I'm a little rusty on those things. If you go to the tutorials, resources, and helpful information folder that's under assignments and go to writing skills, this will provide a lot of information for you for all kinds of writing skills. So right here, thesis, introductions, conclusions. Your introduction should introduce the topic of your paper, so don't just jump right into the prompt. Give us a little bit of an introduction to the topic, which will be the book itself. You don't need to provide a full summary of the book or anything like that, but don't assume that your reader knows what it is you're talking about, so introduce the book itself. Your conclusion should wrap up the main ideas of your paper and actually bring the paper to a close and not just end abruptly when you are done answering the prompt questions. Your thesis statement should be at the end of your introduction, and it should provide the main ideas of your paper, outline those main ideas. You can look to your prompt to help you write your thesis statement. Ideally, your reader should be able to read your thesis statement by itself and know what your paper will be about. So probably need to include the title of the book and those main ideas that you're going to cover. So this will give you a good outline on how to do thesis statements. Your paper also needs to be in MLA format. So if you're not sure how to format your paper according to MLA standards, I do give you a sample paper format here. And also if you need any help with editing and writing skills, there are lots of sources here for you to use for those. Speaking of MLA format, you do need to include in-text citations and a works cited page. If you are a little rusty on how to do that, there is a folder here for MLA citation resources, and for your works cited page there's example citations, and we are doing books in this course, so you will need to use the example citation for a book, which is right here at the top. So this is what your citation will need to look like, so you can use that example to help you with that. So that's what I'm looking for in these papers. These are not meant to be super stressful assignments. They are very short papers. These are a chance for me to see how you write and for you to see how I grade, so that later in the semester when we do longer papers that are worth more points, you already have an idea of what it is that I expect, how I grade, and I've already provided you with some feedback to help you, so you're prepared for those. I do take your papers late, up to 1 week. You will lose 10% from your score, but it is much better to turn in a paper that loses 10% than to not turn in your paper at all. So stay on top of those deadlines. Make sure you get your papers in. Papers will be submitted on Turnitin, which will just be part of Blackboard. So you'll see the links to turn those in. If you're a little unsure on how to use Turnitin, if we go back to that tutorials, resources, and helpful information folder, guess where that's going to be? There is Blackboard tutorials, and in that folder, I'll get it to open up here, there is a tutorial on submitting a paper